righty then. And now it's time for our main event of the evening. Samoa Joe and Gin and Juice against FTR and CM Punk. And they gave it to us with 30 minutes left on the air. And the big entrances and the place is ready for it. And I got to tell you, again, besides the fact that this is the first time we've had a chance to see either Jay White or Juice Robinson in a long competitive match with other people that can work and something sensible, instead of just jumping in from behind or doing an angle or having hoo-ha match, whatever the fuck. There's their top heel team to work with FTR, and there's Samoa Joe. We already know that he and Punk want to work with each other. So this 6-man gave us a tease, and a very good one, of what we can see for the tag team title and what we can see for the Ring of Honor, whatever title Joe has or still has, or potentially the AEW title that Punk may reclaim, or some kind of title. But Punk and Joe and FTR and Gin and Juice are going to be fucking just swell, in my opinion. And I mean, the difference in this, just jotting things down. 6 pros that look like pros, like athletes. They look serious. They're wrestling. Their timing and execution is good. The pacing, the crowd is hot. Good high spots, good action, but it's a struggle. No furniture, no combative parkour, no aggressive tumbling, nothing endless on the floor. The announcing, the production, everything makes this look like a Major League Wrestling show. And that is a completely different vibe on several of those levels than AEW usually reaches, except when, as we mentioned, there was the run that Punk had where his shit made sense and MJF has reached heights. But overall, with the crowd, the announcer, the whole 9 yards, everything, it's not something that we normally see on an AEW TV show that you could say this is as good or this is competitive or this company is apparently on the level of the WWE. I mean, am I just overstating this, or did you get that vibe?
I don't want to compare it to WWE right now, but I think it was certainly a clear difference. There was a clear difference, I should say, between this and Wednesday night. And the commentating to me was the biggest thing, because I always say how Excalibur and that Wednesday night team were the least effective commentating team out there. It's the tone, it's what they're saying, it's how they're saying it. It's constantly yelling at you, speed talking to you.
You know, I am not anybody to say on my announcing, constantly yelling, but with conviction, with meaning, with purpose, with delivering information instead of just sounding disingenuous and hokey, and it's over the top, winking, at the audience.
I am a wrestling announcer.
Yes, because they all think they're Mean Gene Okerlund somehow. But and let's while we're talking about the announcing, this was the match, the main event, where Kevin and Nigel were joined by Jim Ross, and boy howdy, apparently everybody knows now. He said it on Twitter. Jim Ross had one of those days, a bad day and bad trip, bad performance, unfortunately. But apparently somewhere or sometime the night before, I guess, or early in the morning that he was supposed to go to the taping, he's at his place in Florida, and he was in a fall and blacked his eye, and it was swollen closed. He tweeted a picture that morning, bad fall, still going to, Chicago for the Dynamite debut. And then when he was able to be in the booth, he had no voice. It was gone. And I have had troubles with my voice in the past. Remember, we've had it on the show here, and it was from overuse. When I quit doing announcing and screaming in loud arenas, it's better. But there's no worse feeling than trying to be an announcer and having no voice. It's fucking unbearable. So I felt so bad for him. But he really couldn't contribute. He was trying. But the morning after the show this morning, he basically tweeted out that, he apologized for his performance and is going to step away and heal, is what his quote was. I don't know whether he was sick on top of the fall. I can tell you that if he fell the night before, and obviously it might be hard to get sleep in a situation like that, then he's flown in an airplane from Florida to Chicago, and it's fucking 9:30 Eastern time. If he's been up for 14 hours, JR's 10 years older than I am. That kind of shit makes you lose your voice too. I don't know to that extent, but I felt bad for him, and I hope that he can take a few weeks off and just rejuvenate. But again, the dedication that JR has to I will say about Jim Ross what Jim Hurd once said to Jim Ross about me. I haven't seen such loyalty since Korea. He refuses to call in sick or to not show up or to not be there to do the best he can with whatever. Remember, in Baltimore, he passed a kidney stone in a pre-tape on a pay-per-view and didn't tap out. But he needs to. None of us are as young as we used to be. And I'm not saying that anybody's too old to not be able to do what they used to do, but they sure can't do it as often or for as long. And maybe they ought to try to pick JR spots where he's an analyst for the main events on pay-per-views, and he can come in and do production, during the daytime, not in fucking hectic arenas, not after dragging him across the country with one eye or whatever for 14 hours. That might be a better use of his talents at this point. Or they could just listen to him when he gives the wrestlers some advice on what to do, but he tried that before and they mocked him on Twitter. So there's that. Back to this match. Dax I thought was as smooth as ever, although he makes me nervous because he doesn't wear a sleeve over that knee brace. And I saw the thigh strap on his knee brace was loose. I'm like, oh God, because that's another one of my nervous Nelly, situation, bad knees. But Dax was great, but Cash is phenomenal. And he doesn't get enough recognition for that. Especially that dropkick series he uncorked and some of the other shit that he did. And he's so smooth. And as I said before, now that I've seen Gin and Juice in a real wrestling match, I think they're the top heel team in the company. And they were bringing Jay White in like he was going to be a big singles deal. And I mean, I guess they could still make him a big singles deal, but I think they need to be the tag team. Because they're perfect for FTR and they work well together. And then you get, Joe and Punk in there, and they did some good stiff shit. And Joe can still move like he did 15 years ago when he's motivated and involved in something important. He was doing his shit. And I like the babyface team did the Midnight Express.
Who are they?
Midnight Express suplex pickup into the power slam
the
spot.
Midnight Express.
Stop it. I stole that I researched it from Slater and Orton, 1983 Mid-Atlantic. We did it. But the job guys back then weren't great at going up for vertical suplexes, so we switched it to where Stan would fucking pick the guy up in an ass bump and hand him to Bobby, who was sitting on the top rope, and he'd do the spine buster. Anyway, major league looking match. Cash, great buzz Sawyer power slam at one point. Juice Robinson might be my new favorite wrestler. And he was
I told you, he's great.
I know, you don't have to keep saying that, though. I told you so, I told you so.
I learned that from you.
Well, you learned too good. But I love Juice. And then finally, Punk got the last big hot tag and made the big comeback, and they did lots of back and forth. And this match had flown by. Instead of being a 30-minute series of chaos that you couldn't keep straight and nobody could possibly ever live through, This was an athletic contest that went back and forth with twists and turns and believable fucking bumps. They stayed in the ring, no dives. And then finally, as I mentioned, Punk made that big comeback, and then they set the deal up where Cash and Punk tagged each other in at the same time, which you can't do. But fuck it, people were with it. But and Kevin Kelly,
you can't do it though,
who is just as quick like that, saw that, and so as not to bury himself, but as not to shit on the match, said, well, they might be taking a little liberty with that tag. And so it was registered and noted, but it was moved on, but you can't do it. And then Punk and Joe stood and traded. Boom, 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 boom. And it broke into a big six-way, and Joe got Punk in the sleeper. And Gin and Juice were holding FTR on either side of the ring so they couldn't make the save. And finally, FTR came out. Cash hit that big body block of Jay White, I think, off the apron, and Dax saved the Punk from Joe with the headbutt to the back, and that was brilliant.
I thought there was a chance Joe was going to choke him out there. They got me.
And they milked it enough that you bought it, but then they didn't go too long that it lost the momentum. And then FTR broke it up just in time, but that was brilliant because they've showed that Joe would have choked Punk out, and even the announcer said it. If it hadn't been for FTR, Joe would have choked Punk out. And that can be brought back in a single situation. And at the same point, FTR cleared the path of Gin and Juice and then saved Punk. And then FTR hit the big rig on Juice, and who took a bump and bounced into Punk's go to sleep. 1, 2, 3. And what a finish. It built bigger. It wasn't like they did every big move they knew. And then when they were done with that, somebody just won with a simple thing or tapped out or whatever. It was that they built it. And finally it was slam, bang, pow. 1, 2, 3. And then a big pop. And I'm losing my voice like JR from staying up and watching too much wrestling. But that's the way you build a finish, and then you blow it off, and then you pay it off, and then the people loved it. This was the best six-man tag match in AEW history. Now, I know that ain't saying much because normally they're the shits. But they proved here you can have a good one if you try and you know what you're doing. By far, this was the best six-man tag they've ever had. And it wasn't for their bullshit trios title. It was just 6 guys, 3 on each side that wanted to fight each other. So, again, we don't know what the ratings are. This is Sunday morning, I guess. Good God. I don't know if this is planet Earth anymore.
It's afternoon now.
Well, there you go. We talked too long. But we won't get ratings for a few days. We'll see. It's a new show. It's Saturday night, et cetera, et cetera. But one would think that if they keep doing shows like this without the silliness and the softness, that they'll get some of the disaffected fans back. They're going to get the Punk fans. And if they keep having wrestling like that, then they may get some of the wrestling fans that have given up on all this other bullshit. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I would think that they will have a better audience retention on this program because the last 2 segments were just as good as the first one was.
All right. Well, that was AEW Collision.
You have no opinions? Are there no opinions? No workhouses?
Well, to your overall thought, I think the most important thing, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't like the House of Black Blackout segment, even though I like Buddy Matthews' match, I want a different tone here. I think the experiment should be a different tone. Let's see how a serious tone. The original concept of a sports-based wrestling product. Mid-South 2023. Let's try to do that. And it was a promising start. Excellent 6-man tag match. FTR looked great. Juice Robinson, I'm telling you, he's really good. And I think Jay White, when you see him in the States, You realize he's not that everyone has to be a bigger guy, but he's not a bigger guy. And him and Juice together fixes that.
Yeah.
Because Juice has some size to him. The crowd, when Joe and CM Punk squared off, this is with zero time being spent on TV building up the history of these two guys. Showing the old ROH tapes. Zero time.
Which he owns, by the way.
Which he owns, which I'm sure we're going to see clips of and interviews about pretty soon. And that was the reaction these guys got just squaring off. That was promising. FTR, I think there's something with FTR to be said for mentally working against people who you know you're not going to have an issue with behind the scenes or whatever else, working with people you want to work with. Again, the new show, the new tone. I think it showed in the work there. These seemed like guys happy. Not that happy, hey, they're smiling and shit, but they seemed like they were happy to be doing this.
They were motivated. They were working hard. You could tell there was extra aggression, we've all got something to prove here. We want to stand out.
Because they've seen the other side of the coin. A few weeks ago, they would have been in that Aubrey match on Friday night on Rampage. That was what these guys were mixed up with. Mark Briscoe and Jarrett and all that. And now here they are doing this, and it was an excellent match. Can't wait to see what they're going to do with Punk and Samoa Joe. You have to think Punk and MJF long-term has to be a thing because he still has the belt. But we have a world champion. I thought this was an excellent debut episode. Other than the Wardlow match, I liked every match, although the Miro match I thought was too long. But promising. I mean, now it's going to be really interesting going from this to Wednesday night, just seeing the difference in the tone of the show and the quality of the show and who's on the show. The opening video here, it was noticeable who wasn't in the video. No Bucks.
Yeah.
No Adam Page, no Omega. I don't think it was Moxley.
I was disturbed to see Pockets was still there. And my God, that's a pox that they can't infect a brand new program with. But
it is Tony's personal religion because Tony loves Orange Cassidy. And Tony believes he's doing special stuff with Orange Cassidy. And Tony is...
Yeah, the word special could apply in there somewhere.
And Tony's insistent on converting non-believers into being believers. If a wrestler doesn't get it or doesn't want to do something with him, Tony will try to get them to understand the brilliance of Orange Cassidy. Which is why he's going to put him on this show, because he wants to stuff him down your throat.
Well, I'm going to cough him back up. But anyway, I thought this was a great debut show also, and it's not as laborious to watch as Wednesday night. It's not nearly as silly. It wasn't as repetitive. There was some control with the guys to what they were doing so that everybody's match stood out as somewhat different. And just some logic.
No Justin Roberts, no Excalibur, no Shivani.
No Bar Brady.
No Bar Brady. Hate to put Taz in that mix, but, Taz, Renee Paquette, various people who are the sounds and the faces of Dynamite were not here. Shivani shouldn't have been here, but I think that's important. Set a different tone to the people who are already disinfected by AEW. Let them know there's something else to embrace.